But as we suspected, the shooting was completely random. Completely random. The court documents read, the video depicted the victim's vehicle stopped at the intersection and the suspect quickly running up to the driver's side door. Additional video has been recovered which showed that there was no interaction between the suspect and the victims in the preceding block prior to the suspect running up to the victim's vehicle and shooting into it. So they had looked at, surveillance video that showed the shooting happening. They looked at surveillance video down the block. There wasn't some sort of road rage incident or any sort of interaction, verbal exchange between the occupants of that vehicle and the suspect. He simply saw them. He ran up to the vehicle while they were stopped on the road, and he started allegedly shooting into the vehicle. It's all caught on camera. I will say one of the things that this suspect, who we'll talk about in a moment, told police is that, I thought somebody in the car had a gun. And there's no evidence to suggest that or to suggest that he even saw that. Again, all it shows is just randomly this guy running up to the car, firing into the car. Now to the details that are really, really tough. We found out that this woman was more than 7 months pregnant at the time that she was killed. The police report says one victim was an obviously pregnant female who had been shot multiple times, including in the head. She was later identified as 34-year-old Eina Kwon. It was later learned that she was 32 weeks pregnant. Eina Kwon was rushed to surgery and the baby was emergency delivered. Eina Kwon died. The baby survived for a period of time, but then also died. So those doctors at Harborview, they tried to deliver that child. That's how far along Eina Kwon was in her pregnancy when she was shot 4 times, including once in the head. And that baby survived for a short period of time after that emergency delivery, but unfortunately, they could not save its life. To me, that's a justification for 2 counts of homicide in the first degree. Devastating. We also learned a little bit more about Eina Kwon and her husband, who suffered, he was shot. I think one of the bullets was in his arm. He's now been released from Harborview Medical Center. He's going to live, but can you imagine what he is going through today? Can you imagine what that man is going through today? His wife is dead. Their unborn child is dead. They have another child that now he's, left to care for and to try to explain what happened to his mom. We also learned that this couple, they were business owners. They were sitting in their car when they were attacked just blocks from the sushi restaurant that they own in the Belltown neighborhood of Seattle, a really popular sushi restaurant that had been doing well, and I saw some news clips with business owners near them who just said they were working around the clock, as business owners to try to make the business work, the restaurant work, and just the nicest people. And you just think about that. If you can't, in a major American city, a city that is supposed to be a world-class city, a destination city, if you can't run a small business and be in your car a couple blocks going to or from work and be safe, where can you be safe? Again, this is some really horrifying stuff. And I've heard from the business community downtown that they're just devastated over this. And, it's not the first random attack that has happened down there. And I think that's why this stuff hits so hard. If you're in America, if you are following the law, you're not involved in gangs, you're not using drugs, you're not involved in illegal activity, and you're going about your daily life, you should be able to feel safe. You should be able to feel safe. But in downtown Seattle, that's not the case. Whether you're an Amazon engineer, walking on the sidewalk, who gets hit in the back of the head with a baseball bat at random for no other reason than someone wanted to do harm to you, they just felt like hurting someone that day. Whether you're a 62-year-old Seattle nurse who's commuting using light rail and gets pushed down the stairs and physically assaulted by a man who just felt like hurting someone that day. Whether you're a woman who's sitting at a bus stop near Pioneer Square and someone picks up a rock and just decides to beat you over the head with it. Or whether you are the owner of a sushi restaurant, pregnant, 7 months pregnant, in the car with your husband, and someone just decides to run up and start shooting at you. And that is what is so intensely horrifying about the crimes that are happening in downtown Seattle. And anyone who tries, I'm going to talk about this in Sanity Check coming up at the end of the show, but The number of times I see people on social media in positions of power who try to say, yeah, but actually, Seattle has less crime than other big cities in the country. I don't care. Of what comfort is that to the Kwon family? What comfort is that to the people who have been victimized in downtown Seattle? No comfort at all. So we also know a little bit about the suspect in this case, who we're expecting charges really to come at any time. Sorry, I have something in my throat. Give me a second. We're expecting charges in this case really at any time. They have until Friday. It'll probably come before then. We know that he waived his first court appearance, and a judge found probable cause for him to be held behind bars for first-degree murder, assault in the first degree, and unlawful possession of a firearm and use of a firearm. So here's what we know about him. He's 30 years old. His name is Cordell Maurice Gooseby. He has a felony record out of the state of Illinois. His felony record includes aggravated unlawful use of a weapon in Cook County, Illinois. He did have, at the time of his arrest, a Washington driver's license, so he has been living here. We don't know for how long. The King County Prosecutor's Office says that they have never had a case referred to them involving him as a defendant, so he hasn't been on their radar up to this point. We also know that the gun he allegedly used, a 9mm handgun, was reported stolen out of Lakewood, Washington. It was reported stolen to the Lakewood Police Department. So, of course, there's questions about, okay, who did he steal that gun from? How did he get that gun? We also suspect that he's mentally ill. Shock of the century, right? That he had, so police, from witnesses on the scene, they were able to find this guy immediately. According to records, he throws his hands up. He says, I did it. And the police note that he does seem to be in some state of crisis. Now, whether that was manufactured or he's actually mentally ill, he told the police he has a history of mental health issues. Again, that would not be a surprise. I think in order to run up to a car at random and shoot into it and kill a pregnant woman, I think you have to be a little mentally ill. Now, that doesn't mean he didn't understand what he was doing, but I think that's indicative of a lot of these violent crimes. I mentioned the 62-year-old nurse who was thrown down the stairs at random at Westlake Station. That person, history of mental illness, went on to stab a woman at a bus stop and then beat a homeless man to death with a piece of rebar. He was mentally ill. And he'd had known mental health issues. And then our system is so terrible that he actually ended up getting paid by the state for every single day he was in the King County Jail because we couldn't find him a mental health bed to get treatment. So here we are, paying daily a fine to this mentally ill homicide suspect. And so not a surprise that this 30-year-old Cordell Maurice Gooseby saying he has mental health issues. We'll see how that plays out in court, if he's even going to be held accountable for what he did.